world where achievements and accolades motivate us to do more and be more, we're often left wondering, is this really it?
Deep inside, you know there is more to life. You're ready to leave behind the old, push your way through, and claim the deeper life that's calling you.
That's where we excel.
We're your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren,
and this is the Soulful Leader Podcast.
Sit back and relax as we share the shortcuts we've uncovered to help you make shift happen. Welcome to the Soulful Leader Podcast. This is Maren, and I'm here with Stephanie. And I have been on a bit of a grand adventure for the last 3 weeks. My mom's husband, they were in Florida, and they live in Canada. He is Canadian, and my mom now has applied and has become a Canadian citizen. So they were snowbirds in Florida, and her husband got sent home. He had to fly home for insurance and whatever reasons, right? And so my mom is not as she can't get around, she can't drive, she doesn't drive. And so I ended up going to Florida to help her pack up her house and get things done there. And then I got her on a flight, and I spent a couple weeks there, and I journeyed back. I drove their stuff back to Canada for them. So one of the things that was happening for me is during this adventure that I was on, this 3-week adventure that I was on, I really was present to how I want to, the footprints that I want to leave behind in my life. And I think it started many, many, many moons before this trip. And I really noticed it when dealing with different people. There were some people that were really friendly and left me in this space of like, oh, thank you for your help. And others that left me in a space of anxiety and like, is it going to get done? Is it not? And why are you so grumpy? And I thought I would like to be the person who leaves people in a state of, oh, that's great. I know it's going to get done. I know it's going to be, or even if it's not going to get done, I feel good when I get off the phone with me, right? So I want to leave, what are the footprints? So I really started this quest while I was on my journey of what are the footprints that I'm leaving behind in my life as I interact with people, as I move through spaces, as I live my life.
As I hear you speaking, Maren, it's like, I think of footprints in the sand. It leaves an impression.
It does.
It leaves an imprint. And we often, or at least I've been trained, is like, put your best foot forward, and, you want to really, be the best you can be. But we don't always see what's underneath that. And what I'm hearing you say is that looking back in one's life, we can look back and look at our jobs, look at our relationships, look at the places we've lived. We can look at the things we've done or not done. And have we left good impressions?
Mm.
And I think that's a really great thing. And not to get into like, I can hear my mother in my mind saying, don't be burning bridges, and sometimes that can get turned into people pleasing and not, and neglecting my soul or neglecting who I am. And that I'm hearing, that's not what you're saying. You're saying to really go inward and reflect of moving forward. How do I want to leave a lasting imprint or an impression so that when I look back, there's a beautiful garden, there's a beautiful perfume, there's a beautiful essence that the fragrance of your connections with yourself, with each other, and with the world. I really love that.
I love that you used the word garden, because it is, as we move through our lives, we plant seeds that grow behind us. And what are we planting? And I know for me as a business owner, one of the things that my dad talked to me about, he was a very successful business owner, and all of my business coaches have talked about is, what's your legacy? And it
Mm.
was always this big grand thing in front of me of like, am I going to build a business? Am I going to do this? Am I, it's like, what's the big? And as I was traveling over the last 3 weeks, I thought, my legacy is that garden that I'm planting in every action and every interaction that I take on a daily basis. It's, yes, there is this piece that is, what am I creating in the world? And why is it something that's out there in the future? Why am I not thinking about it as, that's every moment that I live and every interaction that I have and how I choose to be in that moment?
Mhm.
And it is a choice, because when I'm interacting with somebody, like, one of the silly things that happened was so the internet, when mom's husband went home, Doug, he didn't think about the fact that mom and I were going to be there for a few weeks packing up. So he was the only one on the that was on the internet account, and he canceled the internet. And so I didn't find this out until I was putting him on a flight going to Canada, and I was like, oh dear. So now I'm dealing with cable company, and it's a stereotypical thing. And it was phone call after phone call after phone call. And it took me 4 phone calls and a personal visit to the store to get our internet restored. And 2 days of investing my time in this. And I will say that the people were wonderful. And at the same time, that's frustrating. And each time I got on the phone with them, I consciously made a choice of like, I can be pissed off, and this person is not the reason that any of this happened, or I can show up and consciously be thinking about, what is the garden that I'm planting? What are the footprints that I'm leaving behind? Am I leaving behind anger and bitterness, or am I leaving behind gratitude?
Yeah, that's a real key. It's like bitterness or gratitude. And
Mm,
it's reminding me of something similar that I've been going through is I think there's a tendency, Maren, that we want to control outcomes. And when it doesn't go our way we are wanting it to go, then we can default to reactivity and going,
yeah.
well, why isn't this? And how can it happen? And and we use our power and power over, or we will feel powerless. And we tend to go into those modes. And I'm reflecting on that leaving footprints in the sand metaphor of that, of in the last 2 to 3 years, I've had a lot of changes in my company of people coming and going, and I'm watching the patterns of the footprints. Some just disappeared without any trace,
Mm,
and others, stomped and kicked the door down, and others stood firmly. And I was just watching, like, the patterns of those footprints of the people that have come and gone and left and transcend, and looking, obviously I can't change any of their footprints, but I can change my
mm,
dance steps to their footprints. And so looking at, what kind of person do I want to be? I love what you said earlier. Like, what kind of person do I want to be in this? Do I want to be a power over, power under? Or do I want
mm,
to step into bigger shoes? And those bigger shoes will hold me. And what I mean for that is, I mean, this just literally happened last week. We were at a team meeting and moving forward, and I was watching myself, like witnessing myself, like almost like I'm on another timeline, like I'm in the
like you're
future.
over
Yeah,
here
I'm
looking
over behind
inside.
me. Yeah. Or I call it the fly on the wall. Like I'm
Ah,
kind of a fly on the wall, kind of like I've visited from another timeline, coming back in time, and I'm visiting, watching this meeting that we're having. And I was not judging myself, but just noticing, where was Stephanie? Am I in my heart? Am I
mm,
present? am I relaxed or am I reactive? Like I was literally watching my kinesiologist. No, let's say the word right. My kinesthetic sense, and not trying to, puff my chest out like a peacock, but also not cowering into like a little fetal position either, but just being loving and open because that's how I
Mm.
want to be. And, people were leaning in, and I found myself not trying to fix or direct or force anything, but just holding the question, what wants to happen? What is the most beautiful, elegant, extraordinary thing that wants to happen here? And who do I need to be to allow that to happen? And I just felt sitting back in my body, being present.
That's such a different way of doing business.
Yeah, it's a complete surrender project. And what happened, we left the meeting, and that night there was, four individuals that were there, and three of them instantaneously replied with, "That was the best meeting ever. That was wonderful. This was great. La la la." I'm like, wow, I didn't do anything. Now that's an aha right there.
Right.
I didn't have to do anything because it was already happening. And now the fourth one came back and said, it was such a great experience. And I want to be honest with you, it doesn't work for me.
Mm.
And instead of being reactive, I was so in awe of the courage and the love that this person had and the willingness to be responsive right away.
Yeah.
So I said,
Instead of
yeah,
disappearing like somebody
instead
else,
of
some
like,
of
yeah,
the
the
others.
invisible, steps that disappeared in the past, or the ones that kicked the doors in, or, I'm like, wow, these are beautiful footsteps.
Mm.
These are beautiful dance. And I felt so in awe of myself and of them and what happened and the surrender. And I want more of that in my life, like to be more of that for myself, for what that means for others too. So I love this conversation of like, are we leaving a relationship? Are we leaving a job or a project or even a place we're visiting on a holiday, even a washroom? Are we leaving it in a better place than what we found it? Not out of anxiety, not out of over responsibility, but that you get to do this. That,
Out of a sense of love, of
yes, out of a
like,
sense of love and respect.
yeah. I was thinking about that, I visited many restrooms as I was in four different airports, and you know lots of rest stops on my journey. And I was thinking about that of as I was traveling, one of the places that I lucked out and I got to be was Tybee Island, just off the coast of Savannah, and it's just gorgeous. And one of the things that I noticed was multiple signs, like everywhere, saying, "Help us to keep Tybee beautiful. Pick up your trash," and et cetera, et cetera. And I had two responses. One of them was noticing the fact that there was no trash anywhere. People were being really respectful about that. And the other part of me thought, how sad that we need those signs. Because what would our world be like if all of us took that responsibility of, I'm going to leave the place at least as beautiful as I found it, if not more so? And like you said, not from a sense of obligation, and not from a sense of like, oh, I'm so great, look at me, here I go, right? Or notice what I'm doing, from this place of like, our world is a beautiful place and we are so blessed to be here, and so why wouldn't I?
Mhm.
And I ask both, all of you as we're listening, and I'm asking myself that because there are a lot of places where I don't leave beautiful footsteps, where the seeds that I leave behind are weed seeds and bitterness, and like things that will also grow, because every action, everything that I do it does leave a seed behind and it will grow, and it's creating a garden that is maybe not the most beautiful thing.
Mhm.
So going forward, how much more attention can I put on that from a place of love?
Well, and I feel like what we're both speaking of is the humanness.
Mm,
Instead of being a robot and just reacting and responding and press 5 for this and press 4 for that. And I can feel myself getting so agitated when I get on those phones. I'm like, I just want to talk to a human being.
mm,
And then when I get a human being, sometimes they're not human. They're still robotic. And I'm like, you're not listening or you're not hearing. And I can get, especially when we're trying to cancel something that has gotten, violated with us, or, whatever it might be, you're trying to solve a problem and we're not connecting.
mm.
And I've had both. I've had experiences of both, really great service and also really hellacious service. But I can honestly say the only thing I can manage is myself in the other end. And I grew up in a family. It's funny. I grew up with one parent being, a squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like if you don't say anything, like you got to speak up and you got to make your voice notice. To the other one of like totally withdrawing, holding back, and saying, it's okay. It all works out. And
Mm.
so I'm glad I had both of those paradigms, because I mean, on one level, it can make a child very confused of like, well, what am I supposed to do? But now as I'm older and I look at those footprints that my parents have left me, they gave me choice.
Mm.
They gave me freedom to then say, well, what would be my way? What is my unique way of living? And how do I want to leave this? And what I'm finding is that when I am kinder with myself and give myself space inside, and this is key. I heard this the other day. It's like, we talk about self-care, and no matter how many bubble baths you have and lit candles and, soft music and, fluffy bunny stories and and fluffy massages and all that stuff, it's great. But the minute you get back to your life, the internal voice, the internal narrative hasn't changed. It's
Mm.
still nasty. And I'm saying that because when we're working with other people or we're working with projects or places, if that my internal narrative is also not kind, is also not leaving a nice footprint inside myself, I can be darn well sure I'm going to leave garbage in the outer world.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a mess. And I look at my relationships, and one of my, how we do one thing is how we do everything, right? And how we enter something is often how we leave it too. So being mindful of like not just footprints that we're leaving behind, but footprints that we're entering into something too.
Right. So
And
if I get on the phone with somebody, I'm already angry. I know I'm leaving that behind me.
it's
Or
going to escalate
right.
generally,
If
unless you
I
have a very evolved being on the other side who's got some training. And I mean, I have an example of that. I mean, how often are we getting telemarketers calling us now? Drives
right.
me crazy, right? It's like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? Anyway, and you want to pick up and you just want to go like, how did you get my number? And rah, rah, rah. Anyway, I picked up one time this lovely woman on the other side. I could feel her hesitating because she was going to go into her regular spiel that she was probably told to give. And she stopped. I could feel it. I could hear it in her voice. And she just stopped, and as if she connected with her own heart, she said, how are you?
Hmm.
And she didn't say, "Hi, how are you tonight?" It was not that. It was, "Hi, how are you? I'm calling from," or she said, "I'm calling from such and such. How are you?" And it was genuine. And it stopped. It actually stopped me, because I was basically saying, "I'm not interested. Go away.
Right.
Leave me alone. How'd you get my number?" And it actually called me to say, "Thank you so much for asking." And then we just had this conversation, this wonderful, delightful conversation. I don't even know what she was selling. But I mean, she said something or other, and I knew I didn't need it, but I was so kind to her. And I
Well,
even said to her, I said, "I'm sure must be really hard. You must get a lot of angry people
yeah.
on the other side." She said, "I do." She said, "Thank you." I said, "Well, I just want to say thank you for being a human being and
Right.
connecting with me first." I said, "You're really good at what you do." And she started to cry. We had this like, this is a telemarketer person here. and she started to cry. And it was just like, I don't really need what you're selling, but I just want to say, if you were selling something that I needed, I would 100% buy it from you right now
Right.
because I trust you and how
You
important
had a
that is
moment where you
at a moment.
connected with another person.
And so she completely changed my whole paradigm on telemarketers now,
Mm,
how one person, those footprints can completely change our trajectory. Like
yeah.
we had a moment of intimacy. It
I'm
was
going to go
beautiful.
back to one of the things you said about all of the outward worldly ways that we self-care, the bubble baths and the massages and they're all wonderful. And what I was thinking about when you were talking about that was my journey was a fully internal journey because what was going on in the outer world was not fluffy. There was a lot of serious stuff and things that had to get done and illness and whatever, all of the drama trauma.
Mm.
And that was one of the things of like I could have had a very stressful, very overwhelming 3 weeks and shared that with everybody in my world of poor me, look at all the stuff that I have to deal with and it wasn't because of the internal work that I did, the choices that I made going into it. And don't get me wrong, there were some points in time like I have not lived with my mother for 30 years and we spent 2 weeks together. There were definitely some moments where like part of me was like, wow. And so I took that every time. There were two specific times that I can think of, and I took the opportunity to stop and, it's like reflect of, do I have to be like that with her? That's how I was when I was a child. I'm no longer a child. I don't need to be in an age regression. What would it look like for me to respond to her being a much older adult, and see her value in the world and honor her and respect her and leave a beautiful footprint here. And so as I progressed through my time with her and working through things and doing the it's like the little internal things of stopping and making choices and recognizing when I was in a reaction mode, it shifted everything. And by the time like I was on my drive north from Florida to Canada, I was in this space of like, this is amazing. And then, like I said, I manifested an Airbnb on Tybee Island, and it just was this magical journey that I ended up on. And things like that, sometimes they happen by accident, and I'd say most of the time it's because you're consciously making it happen. And for me, this particular journey, consciously making it happen meant being aware of who I was in any moment and the garden or non-garden that I was creating as I went, right? What was it, like you said, what was it going to look like? What was the essence of the footprints I was leaving behind?
Mm. Well, I love this. I think, as we're all listening, what are your footprints? What are the footprints or the shoes you want to walk in? Are they ones of feeling like a victim and powerless or power over as a violator, or are they shoes of a lover? Are they kind? Because it's like, it does make a difference. We do leave an impression. And ultimately, it's the impression in our own hearts that is the most important. And so those little things, we keep saying it's the little things, but they're actually monumental, extraordinary. And yes, it actually are small acts of kindness, and to start with ourselves, to
Oh,
look and listen from within. Are you stomping all over yourself?
yeah. Hmm. That's
And
so
what would,
true.
yeah, and what would life be different? How would your life be different if you could literally ask, how am I speaking to myself right now? How am I listening and presencing myself? Am I be the fly on the wall from the future? Not coming back and shaming and judging yourself, but being curious of like,
Mm.
what if I tweaked the way I hold my body? What if I presence myself from love instead of from shame and judgment? What would happen? And be the orchestra, be the conductor of your orchestra, or the gardener in your garden, and plant different seeds.
Yeah.
That's what we have control over.
I love that because it even takes it to another level of internal of it's not how we treat another is a reflection of how we treat ourselves. And so, yes, getting that outward of like, oh, I'm doing that out there in the world to so and so, to my mom, to my,
Mhm.
coworker, to my whatever. There's one layer of it. And one of the things that it will show you is that's likely how you treat yourself. And so going in and sometimes the hardest person to love is us.
Mm.
Yeah, we're not given permission to do that. So Stephanie and I would like to give you permission right now.
It's
To,
essential, actually.
yeah, to
It's not
leave
even
those.
permission. It's essential.
It is essential. It is. You can't do it in the outer world until you do it in the inner world.
And you'll push it away. You'll push
Mm.
it away. Otherwise, it'll come right in front of you, and you'll push it away. The love, that is, will come right in. You'll push it away. You'll stomp all over it if you're doing that for yourself.
And we are speaking from experience when we talk about that.
Yes, we are.
This is not a preaching on the high. This is, oops, been there, done that.
Mm.
Yeah, and we're in that process of learning along with you. So, one last thing that I want to leave you with is one of the things that helped me along the journey was just thinking about in each moment, how can I leave this just a little bit more beautiful than I found it? Whether it's a conversation with a person, whether it was a a thought in my own head, or it was, wiping up the sink in a washroom. Just the little things and recognizing that all of those little things, they are your legacy. They really are. Well, thank you so much for being on this journey with us this week. And we would love to hear your feedback. The Soulful Leaders, you can find us there on Facebook and in LinkedIn and now on YouTube. So we would love to see you in one of those places. And we look forward to chatting with you next week on the Soulful Leader podcast.
And that wraps up another episode of the Soulful Leader podcast with your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren Oslack. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to dive deeper, head over to our website at thesoulfulleaderpodcast.com.
Until next time.